So let us turn immediately now to Leo Koot. Columbus Energy Resources explore, develop and produce gas and oil in Trinidad and Tobago and Spain, formerly known, some of you may remember, as LGO Energy. It changed its name in June last year, and its chairman here is an executive with over 28 years of experience in the energy sector. He's been involved in multiple successful business startups, including leading the refinancing and revitalizing of this company. So let's see what he is bringing to the Columbus party.
Thanks so much. It's always good to have these big engagement sessions. Thanks for turning up. I always like to have interactive events where, and very much to the disliking of Donald, but there he is. But if during the slides presentation there's a question, please shout, because I want to have a conversation rather than just a one-sided presentation. I've pulled a few slides from the AGM, which we had last Friday, and at the morning of the AGM, or at the night before the AGM, a lot of things came together for us. There was a lot of hard work, 2 or 3 months we were all out, but then on the, I think 11 o'clock on the day before the AGM, we managed to sign the big deal for us. And then, and I'll talk you through this. First, we're about a year into this adventure. I was asked to have a look at the LGO assets in early 2017. And when Gordon Steen, who introduced me to the company, said, well, look at the assets. Look only at the assets and don't start Googling LGO, because then you'll walk away immediately. So I took his advice and I looked at Gudrun, which is an old field, but with a very interesting hydrocarbon history. And then I saw the Southwest Peninsula, where there is a lot of prospectivity and opportunity. So I said, well, yes, I want to take this on. And then I started Googling LGO, and then I thought, well, there's a lot of history around this business, so we need to turn that around. So we need to completely change the face of the business, and that's when we decided to do a complete rebrand in June 2017. Columbus Energy Resources, that's what we are. We've completely revamped the business, and we started with a very clear strategy. So looking at the assets bottom up, so what do we need to do with the assets to make this business successful? So the big timeline at the bottom, first thing we clearly had to do is turn it into a profitable company, because LGO was losing a lot of money. So step number 1. Step number 2, I believe and continue to believe that there's a lot more headroom in Gudrun itself. So the free cash we generate, we reinvest in Gudrun to multiply, so to get the cash wheel going. That extra cash we can then use to grow our exploration portfolio in the Southwest Peninsula. And that gives then a great platform for transformational growth. And I'm glad to say the strategy is working. A year in, it is all going fine. So this first slide is a brief summary of where we were. Loss-making, we had a single asset in Gudrun, and that was it. The bold deal everyone talks about, that was not negotiated. So the Southwest Peninsula wasn't ours, really. There was a lot of promises and press releases, but it wasn't ours. So we started with Gudrun and a piece of Icarcos. Icarcos was operated by Touchstone. So the company itself had very poor internal communications. It was a reactive culture. People weren't stepping up to the plate and wanted to be accountable for their actions. And the Spanish government had terminated the license. So the company was not in good shape. So where are we now as of last Friday? So first of all, on the corporate and M&A side, we've closed we took out a lot of costs. So G&A slashed, we closed the big fancy office in London, And we're taking that even a step further, and we're closing the corporate office in London and only holding a small technical office here for our people. Because there's no need for me to be in London other than meeting the investors. It's important to realize that the management team is very aligned with the investors. 50% of my paycheck is in shares. And you may have seen from the last press release, shares 5.1 pence. So with the current share prices, I'm not a happy actor, so that has to come up. We are cash positive from operations. And very importantly, with the Bold transaction, we have secured all of the Southwest Peninsula. And I've got a slide later on to talk a bit more about the Southwest Peninsula. From the organization side, we had Stuart Ahmed now in country. He's doing a great job. We are doing a lot of work on the infrastructure upgrades. But most importantly, we closed Red last Friday. What Red does, Project Red we call it, that was the code name within our business, which is the acquisition of Steel Drum Company. From one producing field, we now have 5 producing fields. So we've got Gudrun, we've got now, following the Touchstone deal, we've got Ikakos, we've got Trinity Innis, South Arran, which are all steady producing fields, turning out a lot of cash. And with those fields, in this new form, the whole business continues to be cash positive, even more cash accretive than we were before. So that's why this is such an attractive acquisition. The other interesting piece of the Red acquisition, the Steel Drum acquisition, is that it's got a development in its portfolio. The Coramaruga development, Snowcap field, which is going through the motions in government now to get its development license. But we believe that before the end of the year, we can have Snowcap online, on stream, and that's going to add more production and even more cash for the business. In general, we've more than doubled our production. We more than doubled our share price. So as a scorecard for the first year, I'm okay, but I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied. So this is a bit of a timeline of what we've done. I haven't talked about the Lind restructuring. People on the blogs don't like Lind, rightly so. The first deal was a deal which the company negotiated during a time of distress. The new arrangement is very much different, and I've got a slide on that later, and I'd like to talk you through that. It's very important to recognize that Schroders, one of the biggest and most reputable investors in London, are part of our share register now. And with the Steel Drum acquisition, we now have also got some Norwegian institutional investors, Pareto. They are the biggest shareholder in Steel Drum, so they're part of our share register now. So we're building up a nice balance of long-term institutions who believe in our story and believe in the fundamentals of the business, and a good spread of retail investors, which creates the liquidity in our stock, which is very important because people want to make money from the business. So this is a bit of a timeline, so where we started. So, this is the tip, the south piece of Venezuela, from Trinidad. And it is just 7 kilometers away from Venezuela. So when we started, we had Gudrun and we had 50% of Ikakos. A fair start. The first deal we did was Bold transaction, and with the Bold transaction, we secured our position in the Southwest Peninsula. We subsequently did the Ikakos deal with Touchstone, where now we are 100% operator of 100% owner and operator of Ikakos. So we've got the dominant position in the Southwest Peninsula. And then with the Steel Drum acquisition, we effectively created a string of pearls around the south of Trinidad. And this last slide shows you all the fields around us mature fields in this mature basin. And you very quickly notice that here in Corrie there is a big piece which is underdeveloped and underexplored. And here in the Southwest Peninsula, there's a whole piece missing. I could talk a long time about why that is, but it's all to do with internal politics and who owns those licenses. But it creates a wonderful opportunity for us to really grow a company of scale based on production from the producing fields and the exploration opportunity within the Southwest Peninsula. I not only want to talk about the good, because the good is too easy to talk about. I always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So what's good about our business? We've established a real strong professional management team, leadership team. There is a lot of horsepower in the team. Malcy, he knows Gordon quite well. He knows Stuart Ahmed quite well. And he's yet to meet Tony. But Tony Hawkins is also a star. And he effectively made the whole deal happen. So we've got a very, very strong team. With the steel drum acquisition, we've got a good shot at exceeding 1,000 barrels of production by the end of the year. And that's not ramping, that's not unexpected, but that's very, very achievable. With 1,000 barrel, your status changes in general, but particularly in Trinidad. You become a material player, and people cannot ignore you. So it's very important to cross that psychological barrier. You're not into hundreds, but you're thousands. Strong, capable. I think that's the things I want to talk about the good. Again, that's too easy to talk about the good. The bad. What am I uncomfortable with is that good on production. It's a great field, but what we've done over the last year is we've added quite a bit of production, but the production is coming only from a few wells. If you look at 7 wells, produce about 50% of the whole production in Gudrun. And that makes for a fragile system, because if one of the wells is down because of a pump problem or if there's trouble with electricity, you've got a big gap in your production. So that is something we need to manage and move away from. The bad or the real ugly remains that we are dealing with an old piece of equipment. It's 50 years old. It's been run by the same people for a long time. And the people are tired. They're tired of working on this field because they've done it for such a long time. They can't see and they can't pick up the spirits and the energy we have believe in the field. So that's something we will be and continue to address. This is us. So have a look at the website. Dealing with the issue. So what are we doing? The bad, the fragile production position. Have a seat here front. The fragile story around Gudrun is solved with the steel drum acquisition. We, from 57 wells, or 10 wells, we now are to 150 wells from which we get our production. And that I expect that will be smoothing out our production profile and get rid of the big peaks. The ugly, again, the steel drum acquisition is a very good opportunity for us to maximize and optimize the organization. We're off to Trinidad. That's why I need to fly. We're right in the middle of a transition. And for any doubters out there, we will complete on this deal. There's no question in my mind. So this is going to be done in the next 2 months. And the transition is critical because that gives us an opportunity to, from scratch, step back, what is the right organization for the combined business, and then pick the people and put them in the right slots so that we get the maximum benefit of the steel drum acquisition. We've got already people in the fields now. We were doing fluid levels, and we're identifying wells which have got additional potential. So I'm confident that that's going to be a success. A bit on the Southwest Peninsula, already talked about, but the key numbers are that it's a large area, and we've got detailed seismic, and on that detailed seismic, we see at least a dozen prospects. And these prospects range in size from 20 million barrels in place, oil in place, to one is as large as 400 million barrel oil in place. That's company making. If we hit one of those opportunities, because they all have that same range, if we hit one of those opportunities, our company will be in excess of $500 million. So that's where the $500 million comes from. It is in the exploration potential in the Southwest Peninsula. James, our geoscientist, always wants to put a seismic slice in there. And it is relevant because in this particular line, it's going across the Bonas field. So this piece, this disturbance is Bonas. And you can see similar disturbances deeper down. And this is a big structure. So if this big structure is oil filled, you can just guess the size of the opportunity. So that's where the big prize is from an organic growth perspective. The other interesting piece of the Red acquisition, the steel drum acquisition, is that they own 2 rigs. We need rigs to drill in the Southwest Peninsula, and with this acquisition, we've secured preferential right to these rigs. So one is the Rolls-Royce. It is the best rig in the Caribbean. It's got a top drive. It's built in Norway. It's Norwegian spec, so it's a very high spec rig, and that can drill wells cheaply to great depths. And then we've got the Workhorse, which we can use on Gudrun to deepen some of our wells and to do more of the mundane stuff. This drills $3 to $4 million wells. This one drills less than $500,000 wells. Still very profitable. Lint, I already mentioned. This is probably the best finance structure I've seen in the last 10 years. First of all, it's completely contingent. So we've got an 180-day option to draw this money. So the interest rate is 8.5%. Well, a company our size, to be able to borrow money at 8.5%, that is phenomenal. And then the other thing is that in this type of deals, there's often a conversion right for the lender. But Lint can only convert at 8.1 pence, which is nearly double the share price of where we are now. So this is an amazing deal. And up until 8.1 pence, they won't be converting. So there's no artificial ceiling or headline. So what next? We talked about transformation and growth. One element of the grand transformation is coming from the Southwest Peninsula exploration, but it's good in life to never bet on just one horse. We've got a very strong management team, and we're good at doing deals. In the short time we've been working, we've already executed on 3 deals. So we've got a very capable team, and I want to release that team on more material opportunities, and this is significantly larger. The Red deal, the steel drum acquisition was okay, but there are several projects in the pipeline which will again have the opportunity to transfer the business materially. The area where we're looking at is we want to use Trinidad as our operating hub, and we want to export that expertise we have into South America. Especially the top of South America, has got very similar geological characteristics, so that's where we'll be operating. Colombia, Venezuela, maybe later. Guyana, all land, and Suriname, all land operations. So where are we going next? Bonas reactivation, we have got a rig on there, so we're going to be building up production in Bonas. We're going to continue on Gudrun. Steel drum integration, which is critical. We want to be able to very quickly benefit from the incremental production we can see in that steel drum acquisition. South Arran, Trinity Innes, and Snowcap development. That is all organic growth within steel drum. And then mature the Southwest Peninsula to end up with big transformational M&A. This doesn't need to happen at the end. Anywhere where we see a right opportunity surface, we'll step in. And I think that is the last slide. And this is where I open up the floor to question and answers.
Okay. Thanks, Leo. That's the story from him then. In my anxiety to get us straight on, I didn't just mention a couple of housekeeping points, which I'll do quickly. This is going to be put on video, and it'll go up in about 24 hours' time, our webinar, just so you're aware of that. If you'd like to ask a question, just wait for the microphone to reach you, if you would, so that people at home can hear the question. So who wants to ask Leo? One at the front, straight away.
And there's one at the back as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you. The question that I like to pose is that what's the depth you're looking at? Because you've got 4 or 5 assets, and I just want to know what sort of depths you're drilling in.
The producing fields are producing from horizons somewhere between 400 foot deep and maximum 5,000 foot deep. So that's the current horizon we're operating in. The Southwest Peninsula could be material more. 70% of the opportunities, the prospects are in that same band. The bigger prospects are deeper, and we could drill wells up to 10,000 foot deep.
What lies behind your question? What was your concern there?
I just want to know how, as you know, it's very expensive to drill beyond a certain point, and you need to make it cash effective. And the only way you can make cash effective is making sure that if you drill very, very deep, you can make the money count.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'd like to add to that. I'm not an explorationist by nature. So I'm uncomfortable with plain, straight exploration risk. So some companies go out to the market, raise $10 million and drill one exploration well, and then that's a roll of the dice. That's not how we operate. We will only drill exploration wells with our own free cash. So we will not go into the market and ask for money to execute on an exploration program. That's not the type of exploration we do. So we'll do a stepping stone. So we first be deepening a well in Bonas. If that's successful, then we take a more bolder step in one of the shallower targets and so on, so that we get to exploit our whole portfolio.
We've got another question at the back. While we get the microphone there, let me just ask you something I saw on one of the London South East share chat rooms. They were talking about possibly a lack of skilled labour and equipment in Trinidad. Is that still the case?
Trinidad faces some challenges. Trinidad is full of good universities, train good people, but then what often happens is that because the oil industry, E&P industry is a global industry, so that the A teams all get sucked up by the majors and moved abroad. So, and get to work on wells which do 10,000 barrels a day as opposed to 100.
Is that going to slow your potential delivery of some of this?
No. What we are doing systematically is we are training our own people. Our new operations manager is a young bloke. I think he's early 30s, but he's an amazing guy. He's got fire in his belly. He's hungry. He's got the same unrest and impatience as I have. So that's how we're building up the team within Trinidad.
Great. There's a question at the back, I think.
Yes. Can you explain your financial strategy here? As I understand it from you, that in exploration you're financing out of free cash flow that you have at the moment, and you have a standby facility of 2.5 million, which you may, a standby facility.
Standby, yeah.
Which you may or may not use.
Yes.
All your expansion up to now from what was a pretty dodgy company has been done out of free cash flow.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that how you're looking at expanding, or are you looking to borrowing, for example, for some of your expansion?
Organic growth, I believe, has to come from free cash. I'm a very traditional oil man, and I believe oil companies need to be profitable to be allowed to grow and to expand. Only when you've shown a track record where you can be proud of what you've achieved in organic growth, then you can go to the market and ask for big transformational funds. Because only then will the additional funds be accretive for all shareholders. And remember, I'm a shareholder as well. I don't want to be diluted. So the only new money coming into the company is money which is going to increase the share price.
Thank you.
And this Still Drum acquisition, is that putting pressure on finances in the short term?
No, but Gordon is a prudent CFO. He wants to be in a comfortable position where if a plane falls on top of his head, that he's not in trouble.
I'm sure we all share that sentiment. Any more questions? Yes, one in the middle here, just on the aisle.
Thanks, Leo. It was a really interesting presentation. I'm not a shareholder, I'm just here to get some general background. So I come from an operations background, perhaps similar to yours. So I'm curious as to why you want to produce more water, because in my view, water is bad. Bad for cost, bad for wells, and unless you want to re-inject it, then you've got to build a facility to take more water. So I'm kind of curious about that type of logic.
Yeah, I've got a similar background to you. I've got an operations background, and the business I was running in the North Sea, Taka, Batani, we were injecting 400,000 barrels of seawater a day to produce 60,000 barrels of oil. So 400,000 barrels of water a day. So that business was a huge washing machine. So I know all about water-oil separation and making sure that that whole process is run efficiently. In Gudrun now, we like more water production because what we've learned from the initial water injection trials is that we're going to be needing more water than we've got presently our hands on. So if we drill a well, we are physically happy with additional water from that well. Why don't we have the traditional operational problems with oil-water separation? A couple of things. The Gudrun crude is remarkably light. It is somewhere between 35 and 55 API. So the moment you put a drop of our oil in water, it doesn't form emulsion, it just floats on top, like petrol or diesel on top of water. So it's very easy to separate. And what we do with the produced water, we use that as our main re-injection source. So that's important because it's a fluid which is produced by the reservoir. So it doesn't harm or damage the reservoir. It doesn't allow clays to swell. So it's a recycling system which we're generating, which is good for the environment anyway because we're not disposing any produced water to the jungle anymore. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
More questions from the floor? Over there. And there's one over here after that.
Hello. One theme and a couple of questions around it. M&A, you talked about consolidation in Trinidad.
Yes.
There are a few small players like Range, Trinity, Touchstone, etc. If you did something with one of those, would that be a share deal or would you use cash? And the second part of the question is, would you consider doing something with Petrotrin, which I think has got quite a lot of assets that need to be better managed and better operated in Trinidad?
Yeah, if you look at the Trinidad environment, at the moment there are 18 different operators on land. So 18 for, I think, 10,000 barrels a day is way too many. So there has to be consolidation. This is one of the first steps. There's a lot more steps to come. The four listed businesses, so that is Touchstone, Trinity, Range, and ourselves, and our Predator 5, we've got a good relationship. So we team up, we share notes, and we engage government and Petrotrin together to the benefit of all. So first step is good cooperation and then see where it goes.
And a question over here.
If I recall, wasn't there a difference in the taxation position for some of the sales, whether you are doing them onshore or offshore?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks for that. Within land, within Gudrun, there are different fiscal regimes. Gudrun is an IPSC, so we pay not only royalties to government, but also to Petrotron. So there's a double take for the government. Still very favorable terms compared to the rest of the world, but if you compare those terms with the terms we've got in the Southwest Peninsula, they're PPLs, they're private production licenses, and that means we've got a contract directly with the landowners, a bit like the US system. So if a farmer owns the land and the hydrocarbon, and they also own the mineral rights. So in that case, we only pay some royalties to government and some taxes. So a barrel in Bonas is twice as profitable for us as a barrel in Gudrun produced.
And that's where your big transformational area is.
And that's exactly where we've got most of our growth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a question at the front.
I wanted to find out what's the situation with the government. You mentioned there are certain challenges that might historically be there. And so how would you deal with what the situation might be in terms of government interference or challenges?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. The way I look at it is that the country and the top level in government is completely aligned with us. We both want to produce as much oil from Trinidad land operations as possible and as economically possible. So if there are hurdles, which there is all over the world in the layers in between, there's ways to solve those hurdles by having the right relationship across all the layers within the government and within Petrotron. Important to note that Steel Drum is better at doing that type of thing than we are. The Columbus team is very strong in commercial negotiations and everything to do with subsurface and operations. The Steel Drum organization has been very strong in building very good relationship with the government and finding ways where everyone benefits. So we are really keen to work with them.
So Steel Drum, how long have they been in the Caribbean?
Ooh, I'm guessing, but it's at least 15 years.
Any more questions? We need to let Leo go in just a minute. I think we've got one at the back. Keeping Donald fit, running around.
Thank you.
Yes.
Earlier in your presentation, you said that you'd be happy if at the end of the year you could produce 1,000 barrels a day. That would set you off as a different player.
In excess of 1,000 barrels a day.
I'm just wondering if what would you be happy with in 2 years, 3 years' time? And also in the answer to the gentleman's question over there, you said that there's currently 18 operators sharing about 10,000 barrels a day.
Yeah.
Would that be, are you looking to add to that or take their share or a bit of both?
Bit of both. We're still going through the transition process. So I haven't completely got my head around the new fields. I know Gudrun on its own can get to 1,500 to 2,500 barrels with water injection working. So you would expect at least those numbers from just the current asset base. If you, however, take an exploration success into account in the Southwest Peninsula, then it's a multiple of that. If indeed the reserves are as large as we hope they are, then you look at similar production numbers as what the offshore operators are getting. There's 50,000 barrels a day.
Okay, and maybe just a final question from me. I mentioned the oil price at the beginning.
Yes. Malcy's a better guy to ask.
We've seen, well, I know, I'm not going to ask you where it's going, but I'm asking you at what levels you're comfortable with it. I mean, we've maybe seen so many different forecasts of a huge spike and then people saying it is going to get weak. I mean, what scenario would be difficult for you?
Oh,
How low would it need to go?
In Trinidad, you've got an odd tax called SPT, and I'm being very open here. And so in zone 51 to 61, in that zone, the oil companies don't get any benefit from increased oil price. So when we were climbing from low 40s through the 50s, all the additional revenues were going to government. We're past that point now. So in short, the answer to your question is, as long as oil price stays above 61, then we're home and dry. Oddly, we would like it to be 49 than 51.
Okay, well, we'll start praying.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. It's Leo Koot, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed.